There we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Encore University's November Arts and Health Research Masterclass. We are so excited to have you with us this evening, and we are very privileged to be able to offer this free masterclass through wonderful sponsorship from AARP, as well as a grant from the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities. And you are in for a treat this evening. If you were with us in October, we had Colin Boothby with us, and he talked a lot about what happens to the vocal tract physically as we start to age. And so we're building on that information this evening with three wonderful dynamic women, Joanne Bozeman, Cate Frazier-Neely, and Nancy Bose. And they have very extensive bios. I'm sure you read them on the webpage. They are authors of a book called Singing Through Change, Women's Voices in Midlife, Menopause, and Beyond. And I read it some years ago and am rereading it now. It's really informative. But what they're going to talk about this evening is not just for the women in the room. So, gentlemen, those of you who are with us, you're going to be learning just as much. And we're so glad that you're here. I'm going to pop a PDF in the chat, as well as we'll figure out how to get it to you with the recording. It's got some resources in it. If you want to learn more, if you want to check out some of the things, if you haven't read the book yet, and you want to read that. So I'll put it in the chat in a minute, but if you're not able to access that, don't fret. We'll make sure that you get a copy of that. And we're also happy to have Catherine Harshaw with us, our Artistic Director for Programming. So she's going to be helping us host this evening. So we've got a wonderful presentation, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joanne, Cate, and Nancy.
Hi, everyone. I am Nancy Boss, and I'm going to be speaking to you first. The way that we're going to divide this up is about 15 minutes of each one of us, and then a question and answer session. And I can't see everyone's face because holy cow, this is 4 pages of people. Way to go. There are names that I recognize that are familiar to me from our Singing Through Change groups. And there's lots of people here that I've never met before. So thank you so much for coming out tonight to see us here on Zoom. And I will say one of my favorite things about Zoom is I don't have to brush my teeth before I talk to you. And so just to let you know, I had a really, really garlicky supper, but just sharing. So let me get started with the always risky sharing screen.
And while Nancy is working on that, I will let you know if you have questions during the presentation, please pop them in the chat and we'll go through those questions at the end. But while it's fresh in your mind, go ahead and pop them in the chat for us.
So right now, are you seeing this title page of Singing Through Change?
Yes.
Oh, success. Fantastic. So I'd like to tell you all what got me started on this. I don't think I've even shared this with Joanne and Cate. When I was about 30 years old and just a baby voice teacher, just getting started, my Aunt Anita moved to being a snowbird. And she said to me, I finally have time to sing in the choir, and I haven't done that since high school. And I'm a soprano, but I can't sing that anymore. How do I get my soprano voice back? And I went, I have no idea. And luckily, through learning from organizations like the National Association of Teachers of Singing and other voice teacher organizations, as well as the deep research that Cate and Joanne and I did, that we were the first people in the world, really, to put together this information. I now can answer my Aunt Anita, and hopefully we can answer some of those questions for you as well. We will be covering the impact of hormones on singing first. That's my section. And then Joanne will be covering the impact of age-related issues on singing. And then Cate will be covering how to sing your best through the inevitable changes. So let me dive in first. I'm going to divide this impact of hormones on singing into men and women, being very sensitive to the idea that is a spectrum of genders. We are simply dividing these two camps by people who are testosterone dominant, people who are estrogen dominant and had a uterus. That's our two different camps here. So, hormone changes mean voice changes for all people. I can't stress this enough. Our voices are not stable and are always changing. They are constantly changing, usually subtly. And over time, those subtle changes can add up to big changes. Sometimes we have changes that aren't so subtle. And that was the case for me going through menopause. There are different landscapes for hormone changes for men and for women. And what we're going to see here for the man is a gradual decrease in testosterone over time. But for men and for women, it isn't always gradual. Sometimes they have what the medical establishment has coined a hormone cliff, where all of a sudden your hormones change and all of a sudden your voice changes. That can happen to anyone. In general, age-related testosterone decline is a normal process for men, and in general, it's gradual over time. Hormone changes relating to aging in men are different from those in women.
Hello? I'm sorry. Can you make your screen full? Because it's blocked by your background on mine. Your PDF, your presentation, it's not full screen.
Does anybody know how to change that?
What program are you presenting with?
A keynote. Are you seeing my entire backdrop? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
seeing we're
Oh,
seeing your desktop.
all right. Well, thank you very much for pointing that out. That's very odd. There we go. Now
Yes,
you,
Yes.
thank you.
thank you so much for pointing that out.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And plus, you didn't need to see all the folders on my desktop. A little embarrassed, but so the hormone changes related to aging in men. This is not specific to voice. This is whole body. Some of the symptoms include height loss, low trauma broken bones, called fractures, or low bone mineral density. This can happen to men. Hot flashes or sweats. This can happen to men. Having less energy, less motivation and confidence, depression and having trouble focusing, rise in sleeplessness, in sleepiness and sleep disturbances, mild unexplained anemia, lower muscle mass and strength, and that shouldn't say lower, it should say lower body fat. But what is important to know is that these things might happen so subtly that you look back and you think, oh, that's been going on for a long time. But for some men who are diagnosed with low testosterone in their 30s and 40s, this can absolutely happen and they start to have these symptoms, and this can be treated. Hormone changes for men regarding the voice. Vocal fold tissues do contain hormone receptors, but the contribution of declining testosterone to the voice changes is not well studied. In fact, I would dare say in singing, it is not studied. And it can't be separated from aging. So, except as we observe the impact of testosterone on voices for gender changes and anecdotal evidence. Now, let me give you just a little bit of that anecdotal evidence. The authors, my co-authors and I have a friend whose name is David, and he is a very high-level professional singer who's made appearances on Broadway for 50 years. And David noticed changes in his voice related to testosterone decline. He also noticed night sweats. And he noticed that his whole body was becoming flabbier and less muscular. And for his Broadway image, that was not acceptable. But regarding his voice, he noticed a decline in his breath support, and he noticed a decrease in his singing range. This is not something that most men complain about. It might take somebody who's a voice scientist and professional performer like David in order to understand that this is happening. But nonetheless, I want you to be aware that if you're thinking back, oh, I think that happened to me, you might very well be right. However, because voice changes are not studied in men, I can't really go into any more detail on these hormones with you. We'll be happy to try to answer questions at the end if you have any, but this is about all that I can give you right now. Hormone changes for women. This is a chart of the lifetime of a woman. And this area called perimenopause, that most of us until the last 3-4 years hadn't even heard of, is perhaps the most dramatic part of the menopausal journey. And it can take place for 10 years leading up to menopause. Now, the average age for menopause is 51, but menopause can happen to any woman immediately after puberty. This can be for medical reasons that it would happen, or simply early onset menopause. So we can look at women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who've gone through menopause, and we can separate those symptoms from aging voice symptoms. Menopause is different from aging voice, and that's why we deal with it separately in the Singing Through Change book. In this chart, you'll see in that perimenopause section that it seems to go up and down over the years, but let me tell you this, it actually goes up and down over the weeks and maybe even the days. There might be one day where a woman feels heavy and fatigued and brain fog. Maybe they're having voice disruptions, and the next day they're sparkling and fine, and they're like, what the heck just happened? That's perimenopause. But these women also don't have time to figure it out because they have careers, spouses, kids, aging parents themselves, and they're like, I don't know, I just got to keep going. And so this is definitely something in perimenopause that surprised us, and I think it surprised a lot of women, that perhaps the worst part of the voice symptoms is going to be during perimenopause. Once you hit menopause, which is the average age of 51 in the United States, then things tend to chill out. And there's just a gradual decline in all of the hormones. Now, some women experience all these symptoms until they die. But most women, it calms down and their body finds new balance. Here is a word cloud of symptoms that have to do with menopause. And if you look at that, you can see that most of those things would actually impact singing. If you have joint pain, it might not feel good to go to choir. If you have weight gain, your breathing style or technique might be completely different. If you have night sweats, it's waking you up 2, 3, 4, 5 times a night. So your quality of sleep is going to go down. Allergies change in menopause. All of these things can impact singing. So it's not just the impact of the hormones on the vocal folds, but it's the entire body. Now, in the interest of moving along, this is the fastest I've ever presented this, so I expect you might have some questions at the end. I wanted to talk specifically about the impact of estrogen on the vocal folds, and then progesterone, and then testosterone on the vocal folds. So I'm going to read this because it's small print. Estrogen causes suppleness of the vocal folds' upper surface, the mucosal layer. Estrogen is good for that. It supports the glands that produce thin mucus that coats the surface of the vocal folds. Does anyone here have thick, goopy mucus and they can never quite clear their throat all the way? Yeah, that could be a hormone symptom. It could be other things as well, which Joanne might go into or might not. Feel free to ask us the questions at the end. Estrogen maintains the tone and the bulk of skeletal muscles, including the deepest layer of the vocal folds. Those are skeletal muscles, which produce lower pitches, and the tiny muscles that produce our higher pitches. Estrogen blocks the effects of testosterone and other androgens, preventing lowering and thickening of the voice. And what that means is that once estrogen declines, the voice might lower and thicken. Now, I want to tell you, this is lore, right? I heard that women's voices get lower when they go through menopause. The numbers show that our voice drops by a half of a step. That's it. But there is a thickening and a richness that happens, even though our voices don't get that much lower in general. It could change our tessitura, or where our passagios or our breaks are in our voice, just by that change in shape. And then estrogen increases oxygenation to the folds by improving permeability of the blood vessels and the capillaries. So estrogen, all good. Progesterone has positive and negative effects on singing. It balances effects of estrogen throughout the body. It encourages the surface of the mucous membrane of the folds to slough off. It causes decreased and thickening secretions of the outer layer of the vocal folds, resulting in drier vocal folds. And so for a woman who has not gone through menopause yet, there might be a week of the month when the vocal folds are drier, and that's during the progesterone dominant phase. And then progesterone decreases permeability of the vocal fold capillaries, leading to swollen vocal folds, and may be involved in neuromuscular activity supporting quick responsiveness of laryngeal muscles. Now, I realize this is a lot of college level talk, and some of you might not be aware, or this might be going too fast. The book goes into good detail and describes all of these little things so that they can be understood. I personally would be struggling with this. And then androgens, including testosterone, women do have testosterone, are naturally secreted in our bodies. It causes the vocal folds to thicken, which lowers pitches, and it increases dryness in the vocal fold due to changes in the glands that secrete fluids near the vocal folds. So that wraps up the slides about the hormone changes. So I just want to repeat and then tell you a little story that hormone changes mean voice changes for all people. Now, in our book, we interviewed 56 women and we got their qualitative research to go along with the quantitative research that we were able to gather. One of the stories we had was a woman that we called Elaine. We changed everyone's names. And Elaine was a highly accomplished and highly trained singer. She had gone to one of the most famous institutions in the United States to study voice and studied with one of the most famous voice teachers in this country. She was doing very well with her career. And then she backed off on her career to become a full-time professor at a university in Seattle. When she came back to singing, she found that her vibrato was huge. It just was out of control and it was fast. And she worked with her very knowledgeable teacher in Seattle to try to figure this out. And they tried to get her voice back to the way it was, the way that it was when it was so beautiful and it was getting audience's attention and she was getting accolades. And therein lies the problem. They were trying to get her voice back to where it was. They had a sound target that they were shooting for based on how she was 25 years ago. Now, in that time, in the intervening 25 years, she had gained weight. The shape of her throat and her mouth, called the pharynx, had changed, as it does for all of us when we age. The vocal folds had definitely changed shape. She had been using her voice in a different way as a voice teacher than she did as just a professional singer. But on top of that, she had gone through perimenopause and menopause. And I think me listing all that just goes to show you that, of course, her voice changed. Of course, she couldn't go back to that sound target that she had before. And I want you to keep this in mind for you as well. We had another woman that we talked to who was in her 70s when she retired from her job, which was heavy phone use at an office. And when she retired, her voice got higher and she went from the alto section to the soprano section. Probably because her voice use changed substantially. She was no longer talking to construction companies on the phone. Instead, she was chatting with her friends and singing 4 times a week. And so there are a variety of different reasons why your voice could change, not just hormones, but aging and use. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Joanne Bozeman, who's going to cover our next section. Joanne, you're muted, my dear.
There. Okay. Sorry. All right. So, thank you, Nancy. That was great. Um, Let me minimize all this. Okay. So, I'm glad to hear that some of this information, some of you may have heard in your last session, but I hope that's okay. Hearing it a different way may be helpful, and then some of you were not here for this information, so this will maybe be new for you. But yeah, what I am going to be talking about is how the voice and our whole bodies change as we get older, and how the voice parts of us and the rest of us interact. As we start this, I just want to stress that vocal aging is a unique experience for everyone. I like this term. We have body, mind, voices. So it's our body, it's our mind, our bodies, and our lifestyle that all interact. It is interesting to know that people who enter older age as vocal athletes, singers, and others like voiceover artists, stage actors, media voice users may experience vocal aging very differently than vocally sedentary people. And so each person brings our unique body, our voice, health, social, and vocal backgrounds as we move through our senior years. And I'm definitely a senior. I think I'm the oldest of the three of us. I count myself in this population, but it's also why we hear such a really amazing variation and the sounds of many older voices. And you might find it interesting, and I recommend listening to or watch, we can do this with YouTube, a variety of singers from different kinds of genres over their entire careers. And when we do this, it helps us get some imagination, some understanding about how varieties of voices ripen through their evolution and into their later years. So I'm going to review a little bit about our voice and how it works, and I'm going to use the model of a wind instrument because we are playing a wind instrument, or you can think of it as a brass instrument. It's kind of the same thing. So all these instrument needs a power source of some kind of a vibrator that changes and causes sound waves, has to go through some kind of tubing, and then we often are changing the way the sound comes out. So it's all the same even with the voice. So first we have to have a power source. We have to be able to move air up to the vibrator. So for us, the singers, it's obviously our lungs, and as wind players. So the lungs and our pressure canister, which we could think of as our lungs, and then our torso, our respiratory muscles in our abdomen and our rib cage. So we use this pressure canister to move air up to the vocal folds, vocal cords, same thing. These are the vibrators. They are the analogous to the reed of a wind instrument, or the buzzing lips in the mouthpiece of a brass instrument. And so we send air up there and the vocal folds are vibrating very, very, very fast. If we think of concert A, in the middle of the treble clef, that's 440 times per second that our vocal folds are coming together. So we're producing various frequencies, and these sound waves pass through the resonator. That's the tubing. And I think this word has already been used by Nancy, the vocal tract. And as these sound waves pass through the vocal tract, they are intensified by the shaping of the throat and the mouth. And then as these sound waves are being acted upon in the mouth, our articulators, that's the tongue, the jaw, the soft palate, the lips, and the teeth, are also interacting with these sound waves to produce our vowels and our consonants. And then out comes our singing and our speaking voice. So as we think about this system, it makes us wonder, like, what are typical aging changes? How do these affect this anatomy that we're dealing with and the process of voicing?
Joanne, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you turn up your microphone input a little bit more?
How's that? Am I louder?
Not much.
Down. How about I'm just bringing the mic down a little bit? How's that?
We're seeing in the chat that folks are having trouble hearing you.
Okay. I'll bring the mic a little bit closer. And how's that? Is it a little bit better?
No,
A
I'm
little
not
bit.
I'm not really hearing a difference, Joanne. You might just have to yell at us.
Okay. It sounds very
I'm
loud.
I'm not hearing you either.
That is so weird. Okay. It sounds super, super loud to me. All right. The other thing I can do is just go off the mic and just talk into the computer. How's that? Let's try
think
that.
you may be able to leave the mic where it is and just go to the top of your keyboard where that symbol is for volume, and that may actually increase our ability to hear you, but you can still use your mic. Just a suggestion.
How is that? That just makes you all sound louder to me. I think what I'm going to do is just unplug my mic, and we'll do it the old-fashioned way. How's that? Can you hear me?
Can you speak just a little bit more, Joanne?
How does this sound? Is this any better? Now I'm just on my computer.
I think I think that's improved personally.
It's improved. It's still a little soft.
Let me go into. I'll just speak very loudly. How's that?
As we're talking about vocal health.
I will do my best here. Okay. So, these are some aging basics because as we sing with our bodies, we have to know a little bit more about the entire system, right? So, and by the way, a lot of this is in chapter 9 of our book, Singing Through Change. Voices have a chronological age and a biological age, just like our bodies have. So our chronological age is our age in years, but our biological age may or may not be the same. It's just how our body functions, either younger or older than our chronological age. And the same thing with our voice, it might be different. We all know older adults with remarkably robust voices, and we know some that's the other way around. Their voices sound older than their age. There are a number of things that influence this, including expressed heredity or genetics. Some people just have simply very robust voices, and we learned this from Ingo Tietze, a great voice researcher. And the person that always comes to me about regarding that is Tom Jones, who just still in his 80s, and he sounds like he did when he was in his 30s. Our underlying physical health and activity level, there is research that shows that when we are more fit and active, we have a stronger voice. Our lifestyle choices can make a difference in how our voices go through the years. And, no surprise, smoking probably would not be the best choice, vocally speaking. Our voice use and our voice fitness, the kind of training that we have, and also the genre that we sing in is going to impact how our voices go through the years. Our voice health history, including something like reflux. A lot of us have that, but if it's not well managed or treated, then we're going to have some inflammation on our vocal folds, and that's going to impact. Or if someone has had a past voice injury of some kind and it didn't heal as well as it might have. So that would impact our particular situation. Again, we're going on physical changes. We do experience as we age a loss of general muscle mass, and that includes the little teeny laryngeal muscles. Those go right along with that. And as we get older, we lose our conditioning more quickly, and our recovery to get it back is slower than when we were younger. Our vocal folds, there are changes in the tiny, minute anatomy that is going to affect how they vibrate, their biomechanical behavior. That's muscular, but it's also a really important layer called the lamina propria, which is kind of I'm going to say gooey, if you will, but that we want to have that nice little layer there that's kind of gooey and flexible. And as we get older, those conditions can change as well, especially with decreased use. So if those materials are not in great shape, we may have more irregularity in our sound, less clarity. And then Nancy already talked about the vocal tract. I think changes in the vocal tract will change our voice timbre. And here we have a picture of that. Here's where the vocal folds are, and the whole turquoise area is the tubing, our vocal tract, pharynx, mouth. And then if we're singing a nasal sound, a nasal vowel or a nasal consonant, then that vocal tract also includes the nasal cavity. But the mouth and the throat contours change, and the larynx does begin to sit lower in our neck as we get older, so our tone will get warmer, as Nancy said. And again, weight loss and weight gain is also going to change the shape of our vocal tract. Other changes. Most laryngeal cartilages, and including the big one here, the thyroid cartilage, will ossify over the years and become stiffer. They get more bonier. Our tiny little laryngeal joints also may get less flexibility. They may develop arthritis. Our nerve transmission slows over our whole body, and that includes in our voice. And also we lose redundancy of nerves. Our singing agility, our speech articulation may become slower, and our voice may fatigue more quickly. There are also changes in the respiratory system, gradual ossification or stiffening of the rib cage and lung tissues, so we get a decrease in pliability, stretchiness. along with decreased resiliency and recoil in the system. And the other thing that's interesting is as we get older, we have less available air in our lungs that we use in speech and singing. We retain more air in our lungs that we can't get out, so we have less room to inhale. And then that's going to probably drive shorter phrases as we sing or talk. There is some evidence that respiratory training may help using something called the breather. I think I'm going to get me one of those. And then we will experience diminished somatosensory. That's your $10 word there. Somatosensory just means how we feel things, including cold and heat. And it also affects how we feel our voice in terms of resonance in our bones and cartilages. So as we get older, we have to be careful not to substitute in different sensations rather than accepting our new normal. Plus, typically, we just don't make quite as much sound when we sing. We lose power in our singing. So we want to accept the new normal of possibly less feeling and less sound that we're putting out. And then we've already talked a little bit about how male and female voices tend to age differently. Men's speaking voice tends to rise in pitch over the years. Women's speaking voice tends to gradually lower through the years. They kind of meet at one point. And men's tone may become breathy due to potential vocal fold weakness of the muscle of the vocal fold. This is usually later on in the years. But women's tone tends to retain clarity due to those thicker vocal folds that we've already heard about. Other influences, and these are more some of these health conditions that can affect voice production include thyroid disease. It increases with age. It is sometimes missed in older people and can impact the voice. And so if it's untreated, then it can lead to a loss of range and a cloudy tone. The good news is if thyroid diseases are treated, then that can reverse the voice changes. Lung diseases increase, asthma, COPD, chronic bronchitis, and also some of the medications, the inhaled medications that are used with these can affect the vocal folds. Neurological conditions, essential benign tremor, Parkinson's disease, and it's good to know that with Parkinson's, singing is helpful. It's actually therapeutic. And then swallowing disorders also can affect voice. Dehydration. This is interesting. I learned recently that a lot of us are dehydrated. So in older people, 17 to 28%. Some of this is related to age-related loss of thirst. Our instinct to drink, that feeling thirsty, becomes lessened as we get older. So we have to really, really self-consciously push fluids. And also diuretics are going to dry the body out. When we have drier voice conditions, that means inside the vocal instrument, the vocal equipment, and on the outside of the voice can lead to increased vocal effort. Dryness of the laryngeal area and or the mouth. Our secretory glands just don't work as well as we get older, and it leads to thicker mucus. Drying medications can add to that, including a lot of medications can cause drying, including blood pressure medications. So using xylitol-based mouth rinses and lozenges, and these little handheld saline nebulizers, some of you maybe know about them. It produces a very, very fine mist that actually will get down on the vocal folds and help them feel more comfortable. And then lessened voice use in social interaction will lead to a weaker voice because we're not using the voice muscle. And that could be with a loss of a partner or fewer social engagements that can contribute. And then hearing loss can affect voice perception. So it's important to be tested for that and get treatment. But in spite of all that, there's a lot of good news. Voices do respond to training, those between choir rehearsals, homework that Kate's going to talk a little bit more about. I love this quote up here. There are far more old people than old voices. Voice researcher said that. And there's so much that we can do to help offset and reduce some of the effects of this sedentary vocal aging that we're trying to avoid. The best thing you can do is to keep singing, because older people who sing are perceived to have younger sounding voices. And a friend of ours did a very interesting longitudinal study of female singers from 55 up into the 70s. And her research showed that a vocal fitness routine can have really important effects on the voice. She found improved respiratory function, increased range, power, and stamina, maintenance of agility and good pitch, and improved tone and efficiency. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have that much time, but she found it didn't take that much time. Her subjects were asked to sing a minimum of 20 minutes. That was the routine that she gave them, most days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. And then she showed these wonderful positive results over time. We can increase our daily speaking voice use. Our speaking voice is our singing voice and vice versa. So reading out loud, talk to the dog or the television enthusiastically. And then general exercise is associated with stronger voice and respiratory system. So you don't have to run marathons, but walking, yoga, tai chi, these kinds of things, lightweight lifting, all will contribute to a more young voice. And so some daily habits, and preaching to myself, preaching to the choir here, use the voice every day. And then if you find that your tongue and your mouth isn't working as fast, then practice some tongue twisters. They talk about, neurons that fire together, wire together. So just give your voice the excuse to the nerves to get a little bit faster. Stretch and contract your voice every day by doing pitch glides. They're a straw. We know about that. Got mine here. Ooh, or lip trills. Bottom to top, top to bottom. And for the men here, that includes your head voice or your falsetto. And for the ladies, that includes your lower voice, your chest voice. So we have balance in the registers. And then, of course, keep drinking, keep drinking, keep drinking. It's good inside and out. And then just keep reminding ourselves that the ability to sing at any age is really precious. And I appreciate that quote from our friend John Henney. And I think that is my last slide. So Cate, this is Cate's actual beautiful art piece. As I pass it off to Cate, she's going to be giving us more practical information about kind of finding our bodies and how to do that between rehearsal homework.
Okay. Thanks, Joanne and Nancy. I feel like I learn something or I'm reminded of something every time I hear them speak. So, as promised, we are going to do a section on practical tools. And since Joanne mentioned this 20-minute practice, and actually research shows 10 to 20 minutes is all you need per day. If you are coming at this from when you were a piano major and you practiced 400 hours a week and you're trying to do that for your voice, it won't work. The voice does not respond that way. And we'll talk about vibrato and some exercises for that in the question and answer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a combination of somatic awareness. Could I see a show of hands on how many people know what that is? Somatic awareness? Okay, very good. Basically, it means your body's ability to sense either where it is in space or what's going on, the quality of the movements inside your body. And somatic awareness, I think, is the key to health and to longevity as we age and in sing. And so I'm going to do a combination of somatic awareness with actual vocal exercises. The first thing, though, if you're sitting in your office chair and you have a regular straight back chair, flat chair near you, can you get it and sit on it while I start to talk? This is going to be important because your back will respond differently in an office chair than it will on a straight back chair. So the first thing we're going to do, and if you are able to stand, please stand. And you can stay seated if you want. But this is in that 15 minutes or so, 10 to 20 minutes of your Daily practice is great. I don't do daily practice. I do 4 times a week. So do what you can. Anything is better than not doing anything. The first 1 to 3 minutes are going to be stretches and movement appropriate to you. And I'm going to trust that you each know your bodies well enough to know what you can and can't do. I once taught, when I was teaching in college, I was teaching a movement class, and one of the kids went crazy and came down on his ankle too hard and broke it. And that was the end of that class. So please know what your limits are. And you can, not now, but you can put music on and you can dance for a couple of minutes. Make yourself dance. I love David Byrne's Burning Down the House. That is a really good one for dancing and moving. You can also, and I'm about to embarrass myself, you can also pretend that you are doing an interpretive dance. Make these movements with me. You see how I'm bending my leg and going up on my toe? And I'm doing an interpretive dance. You can do this seated, and most of you are just staring at me, but can you get started? That's it. Get started. Interpretive dance. You're moving your hips a little bit, maybe. You're moving your hips around. You're sort of bending down. If you practice yoga, you can get down on your knees. If not, don't worry about it. And one movement, if you're not sure what to do, stretch one arm out in front of you and the other one behind you, and switch back and forth. And you're going to feel your upper ribs move. And this is really, really good. I did this in line at the grocery store the other day, and no one cares where I live, what you're doing. That's it. Okay, so you can also mimic Tai Chi movements, right? Your knees are bent and you're holding a ball and stretching it up and moving it like this. That's right. And then the ball comes down to about your belly button. And you can do the same thing again. And you're making these very slow movements. Okay. And you do that for 1 to 3 minutes. Then take a moment and you can sit down again and try to sense the muscles you use to exhale, and compare it with the muscles you use to inhale. So first you're going to blow out through an ooh in your mouth. See if you can kind of go internally and feel which muscles are moving when you do that. And see if you can get your belly from about the belly button down to the pelvic floor. See if you can get that to move in when you exhale. And when you inhale, you might feel your back and your belly move in opposite directions. The back in the back, the belly in the front. Don't try to breathe for singing right now. We're just trying to sense movement. And the reason I feel this is important when we start to sing is most of the time we're all carrying so much tension that when we go to sing, we have to become elastic again. Yeah, so blow out, belly's moving in. Let the ribs come down. Don't try to hold them out right now. And if they won't come out, and if you're a holder out of ribs when you sing for the whole phrase, that is a problem, because the natural movement is to start to hold out and then it comes in. And we can talk more about that at some other time. But for right now, it's just blow out, inhale, feel the movement. And the reason you're getting into this is because when we sing, the quality of your singing is dependent on this interplay of the in and out, the inhalation and the exhalation. And they're dependent on those muscles coming together and sort of balancing. So if you have any questions on this, pop it in the chat. Okay, So I'm going to read this for a minute. Your abdominal movement supports the outward airflow while your rib muscles help to prevent air from flowing out too much. So that's what I mean. There's this lovely dynamic give and take talk between the muscles of inhalation and the muscles of exhalation. So purposefully blow out your air and collapse your ribs. We're going to do an exaggeration. So if you do this and collapse everything, you won't be able to exhale as long as you normally do. Go ahead and do it wrong. Show yourself that. Yeah, then come back up. Now keep everything up, blow out, feel your belly move in. And you see how you have more air that way, right? So when I'm retiring from 46 years of teaching in a month. Excuse me. But I do have students do a lot of things ineffectively so that they can really feel the difference, right? That's a common teaching tool, right? Okay. All right, so now we're going into the next few minutes, and you'll be able to refer back to your recording for this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make double chins, and I will bless you with the size of my double chin. And I want you to push your neck back. Give me a double chin. Right? And you're going to feel a stretch in the back of your neck, maybe even in your lower back. And then let it go. Let it go. Good. Double chin again. Yeah. Now I don't feel that in my neck so much as I feel it in my upper shoulder, and everybody is different. And then let it go again. One more time. Double chin. Now, the reason for that exercise is so many of us, myself included when I'm tired, end up coming too far forward. And as we age, if you have spinal issues, this is something you need to discuss with your physical therapist or with other things, not necessarily feel like you have to do this and suddenly you'll sing better. Because if your body won't unfold into that, you don't want to force it. However, I have a little trick to show you. If I sing, I'm going to sing an eval, and I'm going to start like just sort of up, and then I'm going to come way far forward, and I hope you can hear this. You hear that pitch change. That I wasn't making that. That was just my neck coming forward and impeding my throat. Okay? Yeah. All right. So let's move on. We had the double chin exercise, and now we're going to do the tongue in the cheek exercises. There are a lot of teachers do tongue stretches. I happen to be one that feels that tongue stretches can't really help your singing unless you're re-coordinating the rest of your body with it. But this is a good one. So we're going to take your tongue tip and move it into your left cheek and push your cheek out with your tongue. And then go the other way. And then another time, do it a second time. And you'll notice one side might feel a little weaker than the other. Spend a couple more seconds on the weak side. Okay. So that's the first few minutes. And it will take you less time than it did us here because you'll be doing it on your own. Now, Joanne mentioned semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, and I'm sure your choir directors know about them and do various kinds with you. I would like to suggest one right now called the V. You're going to do the motorcycle V as in Victor, like this. And when you rev your motorcycle, you're going to pulse your belly in. And this isn't necessarily how we sing, but we're going to activate the muscles that do sing. I know you would love to see my belly activated. Here we go. And you're pulsing inwards. You're not pushing out. So take a moment and just do that. You're connecting your airstream to your torso. And while you're practicing that, I want to tell you that my original presentation for you all was to talk about the 5 to 7 diaphragms in the body and how they all work together. But my colleagues convinced me, and I think they were right, to do some more practical things rather than just yabber at you. But when you do, you're connecting the throat diaphragm with the upper chest diaphragm, with the thoracic diaphragm, with the pelvic diaphragm. And you didn't even know you were doing that, but that's what you're doing. Okay, good. And kind of undulate, so go high, go low. And now I'm going to give you one of my favorites because we actually get to start singing. We're going to take the vowels E, E, A, O, U. And what you're going to do is you're going to blow out little puffs of air between each one. You can pick whichever pitch you want, but I'm going to find what I want to start with. E, A, A, O, U. Okay? I want you to try it. You're going to be pulsing your belly again. E, A, A, O, U. E, A, O, U. Now you guys try that. And I'll put in the chat what the vowels are if you couldn't hear. E, A, O. I don't have my International Phonetic Alphabet on my computer. E, A, O, O. Okay. E, A, O, U. Good. Now pick another pitch. E, E, O, O, U. Yes. Okay. All right. Now the last one in this section is to do a little scale, and Joanne suggested this one, diggity. And you might have done variations on this for your articulators. That's why we did the tongue. The other thing is, we've noticed that most choral singers over-open their mouths. And does it really help you understand me anymore if I talk like this? Right? Right. And usually if we're over-opening, it's either something that we were taught in high school back when we didn't open our mouths, or we don't have the flexibility and access to, one of my voice teachers called it the holes in our head, that help us to be able to pronounce without over-opening. And the reason that's important is acoustically, in classical music or in most choral music, not in popular music, if we over-open, we lose resonance. We lose resonance. So we're going to do diggity diggity, see, diggity dig, Diggity, 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 dee. Try that. Diggity, 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 dee. Or diggity, 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 dee. Diggity, 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 dee. Now, if you want, you might do this 5 or 6 times, or you can change it to a minor pattern. Diggity, 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 dee, if you're trying to sharpen your ear. Go ahead and do a couple of those. Good. Good, good. Now remember the back of the head. Remember the back of the head. So that's it. And I know that you're leaning in to see but leaning in like that and singing don't really go together. Oh, you guys look so much better. Wow. Oh my God, you all look like singers now all of a sudden. Diggity, 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 dee. Right. Okay. Yes. So we're getting all the plates spinning. You know what that's like. Get this thing going, get this one going while you get this one going. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure your choir directors, because I know Encore has really fantastic choir directors, do a lot of the same sort of thing. Okay. Now, the last kind of 5 minutes, I want you to make a sound like a witch's laugh. Yes. And it changes and exercises your vocal tract. And I want you to do the a couple of times. Joanne mentioned that we often are trying to go back to what our voices used to feel like. And not only has our vocal tract shaped, but our heads have gotten changed. Our heads have gotten bigger, our noses have gotten bigger, and our larynx is turning more solidly to bone. And our larynxes start to turn to bone around age 2, but by the time they get to be older, they're not as flexible. There's no way you could, Nancy was mentioning this too, there's no way that you can make your voice feel like it did back in the day. So these kinds of exercises that we're doing kind of give you a different sense of what your throat is doing. Another one is we're going to take this, it's kind of like a fake Swedish phrase. Whoop da. Whoop da. And you're going to do a head voice or a higher voice, and then a little bit of a more towards speech level or a lower voice. And everybody will be different on this. If you are a choral singer who's been taught not to use your chest voice, I urge you to experiment with it, because it helps the voice stay healthy. You might not use it in the choral setting, but in your own practice, please find it and use it, or get someone to help you find it. Same with the falsetto in men. Whoop da. Yes, kind of enjoy that sound up there. Whoop da. That's it. And you can go back and forth between those, and this is my personal favorite. The phrase is, hey, get out of here. Hey, get out of here. Slightly nasal, maybe slight from somewhere in New York accent. And you'll do 3 of those. Hey, get out of here. And then you'll sing, hey, 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 get out of here. Hey, try that. Yeah. So you still have your neck. Hey, can be done with that belly pulse. Hey, get out of here. Yeah, very good. You don't need a lot of them. Okay, I'm going to give you one more now. Maybe, yeah, because I'm running out of time. But you're going to pretend that you're pulling things out of the corner of your room or out of the computer. So you're actually like grabbing weeds and this way rather than punching. And we're going to take an arpeggio and we're going to pull weeds. B, 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 B. Yeah. B, 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 B. Now you do them at your own pace and in your own keys that you want to do them. All right, so keep your elbows sort of up as you pull. Yes. That's it. And now relax for a second. And after doing that kind of warm up, what do you notice about your bodies? And you could put it, just, you don't need to answer me right here, but you can put it in the chat. I would hope that they feel energized, and I know your choir directors do this, but when you do it at home, it's a big help. It's a big help. Yes, yes, I notice the posture is lighter, body alignment, it's not stuck in one place. Yeah. Warmer, energetic, hands are tingling. I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's fantastico. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I need to mention one more thing, and I'm going to do this with one sentence. Don't be afraid to make adaptations. If your measure for being a good singer is a certain way that you used to sing a while ago, you're going to be disappointed. You can improve. We can improve breath. We can improve vibrato. We can improve range. There are many things we can improve. But if your measure has been, it used to sound like this or it used to feel like this, do some ego adjustment work. And I want to share something with you guys. I've had 7 abdominal surgeries in my life. I've also been diagnosed with bilateral vocal fold paresis. Both vocal folds became partially paralyzed. And I'm still singing. I was not going to be robbed of singing. Now, it's in my church choir, but I'm so grateful. It's like that quote Joanne said that John Henney put out. It's a privilege to sing. It's a privilege to sing. And one of my students right now is a woman that I knew in high school. We were good friends in high school, and she had a fantastic voice. And she started having trouble last year. She refuses to adapt. She refuses to adapt, and she made progress but then stopped. There are many ways to adapt, and we won't go into that right now, but I'm sure your choir directors will have good suggestions. Change sections. Don't breathe. Don't try to carry the long phrases. No choir singer in the history of the world was ever meant to sing every note, every word, through every rehearsal, through every concert. And I bet you didn't know that. So you're not a failure if you don't do that. Okay? Okay. So now we have some questions, and I'm wondering, there's a reason your choir director tells you to put your feet flat on the floor. There are multiple nerve endings from your floor to your pelvic bowl to your diaphragm all the way up into your head. That's why putting your feet on the floor is so important. Okay, Marianne or Catherine, do you want to get to questions or, oh, thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. I also wanted to mention that the Singing 101 book that I wrote several years ago is a way to go back and check. It's
Thank you,
in,
Nancy.
yeah, thank you. It's instructions on how to find your own optimal alignment and resonance with the voice that you've got now. So there's a handout that we provided that Marianne mentioned earlier, and it will talk more about that as well.
Yes. So unfortunately, I'm not able to add that PDF to to the chat either. But I will talk to our marketing team when they post the YouTube video. I think there's a way to attach a file to the video, so we will make sure that you have access to that one way or another. We promise that you'll have access to that. So I'll go through the chat questions if that's okay, and let our presenters answer. So Jackie asks, is there a way to control your vibrato?
Do you want me to take that and then you guys can add?
We can jump in if
Yeah.
If we have anything to add, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, when vibrato becomes noticeable, and it becomes something like a tremolo or a goat bleat or something like that, vibrato in itself is not necessarily bad, but I recognize in choral situations, sometimes your director will ask for less vibrato because of blend. Let's first talk about if it's a real issue, a tremolo or whatever. That's related to, and this is going to be like, thanks, Kate, too much air pressure or too little air pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's if there's no pathology. You can have an extended movement like the tremolo or the tremble due to neurological conditions like benign essential tremor, Parkinson's disease, that sort of thing. That's when you need to get to a clinic, a voice care clinic. And one of us is going to talk about this too, and be seen by an otolaryngologist. There are things that can be done from a medical point of view, and then a good singing voice specialist can help you with exercises for that. I'll give you one exercise if it's just an out of control vibrato and it's not a pathological response. If you take very light, foo, foo, foo. I learned this from Phyllis Brynjolfsson, a Grammy Award winner, about 25 years ago. Foo, foo. So it's F-oo. And if you do... Did I say F-U? Or F?
Yes.
you did.
I'm sorry. It's spelled F-U. And you can foo, foo. You can do it very lightly and staccato. Foo, 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 foo. Then on the middle one, you're going to move your hand. Foo, 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 foo. And the point for that is to not back away from the tremolo, but what you move your hand like this, you're engaging your body. And that's if you're using too little air. Foo, 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 foo. And then you start to go, oh, well, when I shake my hand, my pelvic area is doing this, my back is doing this. Foo, and you get so that you can foo, foo, extend it while you engage. That's one exercise. Anyway.
I'd like to add, sometimes vibrato issues come with tongue tension because the tongue is maladjusting the larynx by being too tense. And honestly, that's very hard to self-diagnose. This would be a good reason to go to a highly knowledgeable and experienced voice teacher, because most voice teachers, frankly, have no idea what causes or how to change vibrato, because the science is very new on vibrato. So it's just been supposition until very recently. But the tongue tension can cause things to get out of adjustment. And if you're an overachiever, but you've worked out your breath and you're still having vibrato issues, it might just be your tongue and your transmandibular joint, your jaw muscles.
Yeah.
And also to add to that, the tongue wants to help you.
Mhm.
If it's super engaged, it's trying to tell you that other things in the body are not working right.
Mhm.
That's my opinion. Oh,
Yeah. Another way you can also do this. Fast jiggly fingers can also sort of like fool the nerves to just fire a little quicker. And there's actually some research on that. So wiggly fingers on the exercise that Kate was doing. And yes, you as most of us know, you can be a 25-year-old light lyric soprano and have a big vibrato. That's so vibrato is complicated.
Yes.
So the other thing, and I think Kate was sort of going there, is just if you might be overweighting the voice too. And so I don't love the word light, but in singing, but you might just explore and maybe sing your music in via a different genre. Say, okay, I'm going to pretend to be a jazz singer.
Yeah.
And
And Joanne, you've mentioned this before. One of the reasons that we might overweight the voice is because our senses of how our voice feels decreases with age.
yeah,
Therefore, we try harder just to feel the same.
exactly.
Yeah.
So find a way around it. Like, I'm going to do this like a jazz singer, and you may find that you're singing all the pitches and everything for your whatever you're singing, and you go, oh my gosh, the vibrato is narrowing. It's probably because you might have been overweighting, trying too hard. So those are just a few ideas. But again, I think working with a teacher is very helpful. And it can also just be a matter of nerve impulses slowing down a little bit, but narrowing the vibrato versus making it bigger is part of the equation. So anyway, it's a great question. Very common.
Linked to that, if you want to expound, because you talked a little bit about breath, is Arlene asked, how do we improve breath support and control as we age? So you talked about kind of that idea of with the vibrato, making it and not having it. Is there anything that you can expound upon that around breath control and breath support? Control is another word I don't like.
well, I just want to say that this is a little tricky because we've been talking about how to do this entire 45 minutes, and it's also often multi-pronged. If you have never had pelvic floor therapy, and this is for men too, men can get pelvic floor therapy so that the pelvic floor is moving like it needs to. That is going to improve your breath support because of because of its relation to your diaphragm and to the upper chest and to the throat and to your feet. You will need to increase aerobic capacity. I just am getting back into that after 2 years where I couldn't for various reasons. And see if you've never seen a body worker for cranial sacral therapy or Rolfing or Alexander technique or anything like that, diet is very important to breath support, because if your digestion is off, it's going to screw up everything else. So there's not, from my point of view, there's not one thing to do. It has to be many things within your lifestyle, and you start to notice a big difference. Also, let's talk about just one thing: breath support and vocal cord closure. If your cords are not closing and opening like they need to, you're going to have lots and lots of air escape. And Joanne, why don't you talk about vocal fold atrophy?
Yeah, I will do that. I was going to go there too, Kate, about if we can't manage our breath support well if we're leaking air through our vocal folds. And that can just be a habit, of singing a little breathy. And we can work with that. I love the witch voice thing. That works very well with that, or creaky voice or fry. It's sort of when we're making these kinds of sounds, or ee or ah, these are not the final singing sound we're looking for, but it's actually getting the joints at the back end of the vocal folds to close all the way, getting the closers to work completely. And chest voice does that same thing. So all those things can help get better closure, but there can be something physiologically that's going on, particularly in a rather older voice, but not all the time. And that is if the vocal folds themselves, if the muscle and the overlying layers, lamina propria, begin to show age-related changes and weakness, then if we're looking down, say you're looking down on a laryngeal exam, and instead of the vocal folds coming together like this, we get a little bit of a gap between them. That's called vocal fold bowing. And in that case, it's a muscle weakness that the muscles are actually atrophying a little bit. And so the middle part doesn't come together. And so you're just going to be leaking some air. And that's more of a medical issue. And so if more common in male bodies than females, but if that seems to be something a singer is experiencing, going to a good voice medical clinic, a laryngologist, can be a step you can take. There are some medical treatments, and speech therapy can help with that. But overall, doing certain kinds of exercises can help with coordination. It won't make that bowing go away unless some medical treatments are done that can help with coordination and singing. So did I hit the main points there? So
Great. Another question, actually, Cate touched on this. And Cate, I muted you while you were typing there. It's okay. Do certain types of diet contribute to the expression of the voice as we age? And Heather, yay, I'm glad Heather's here. Heather Fetro is one of our conductors, so I'm so glad that she's here.
To answer the question, I would say yes. But this is very much an individual thing. Mm. It's very much an individual thing. Some people can drink milk and not have it affect the throat at all, or coffee. If you are drinking too much coffee or caffeine, the vagal nervous system, that passes through a hole in the respiratory diaphragm is going to be jazzed, which is going to affect your ability to breathe. That's not necessarily age. But I think one thing that needs to be studied is as we age and we develop allergies, because that's actually a pretty big thing. And I want to share you this with you. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and for 1,000 years. We moved out to the Pacific Northwest several years ago, and I developed a pollen food allergy, and I was just very lucky to find someone who knew what was going on, that I developed allergies to every indigenous tree and grass out here, which translates into food allergies. So like if you eat bananas, that's because you're allergic to birch or something like that. I was a mess for 2 years. And that was a new thing that I developed around the age of 69. Mm. So it's a very real thing. I just don't think there's been enough research on it. If you go to your gastro person, they'll go, I've never heard of that.
Let's see. Joanne asked, can you discuss the relationship between hearing aids and the perceptions one hears of their own situation in the choral room? And I know I have a singer in one of my groups that just got hearing aids, and she came right up to me and she was like, I'm a mess. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, okay. I am a hearing aid wearer, proud of it. So I can speak a little bit to that, and I will say this, and I've been wearing it for about 18 months. And I would say I think what our audiologists need to warn us that it takes a long time to adapt to hearing aids once we first start wearing them, because all of a sudden we are receiving frequencies that our brain has been like turning up our receiver on really high. So when we first put them in, everything sounds really loud and awful. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's the tendency. But my audiologist warned me it would take a while for my brain to turn down the receiver. So I totally understand what the singer is talking about. I think my first answer is to try to be patient and let the brain, it has to kind of rewire. If you've heard of brain plasticity, this is where brain plasticity is going to start kicking in, but it takes a while. Your audiologist can also help, like if there are certain sounds that are just like really driving you crazy, the audiologist can make some tweaks to make it a little bit easier. Regarding singing in choir, I think messing around, a lot of hearing aids have an app that you can have on your phone. And so playing around, if you have that, that's a good thing because you can mess around with an equalizer or at least volume. You can try and, so say, okay, this I can hear better with a volume like this. The other thing is sometimes taking one hearing aid out and singing with one natural ear, even if you're not hearing exactly as well. That kind of is a way. I did that for a while, and that was helpful. But over time, I found that it's not driving me crazy anymore. And the other thing, always talk to your audiologist about these issues. Audiologists are not all musicians, and you have to explain to them, like, I need to hear the people behind me and the people, and I also need to hear myself. I don't have like super quick answers for you, and whoever that was, I'd be delighted to talk to individually versus taking more time. But I understand, and I'm happy to discuss a bit more because it is a thing, and so many people will be benefited by wearing hearing aids, and I don't want, uh, we should be able to do our music with our hearing aids in. It just takes some time to adjust, I think.
Thank you. I just wanted to share one of the comments. Sheila, who sings in our Glen Echo chorale, says, I'm happier with my voice now than when I was a lot younger, and I'm almost 82.
Oh, I
So
love
that's wonderful.
that.
Let's see, we've got lots of things, lots of praise. Thank you. Wonderful. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Beth shares, when I joined Encore, I was singing alto and my highest note was D sharp. I learned from Gene Kelly, who is our founder that Cate knew, how to resonate in my head. And now I sing soprano 1. I feel like this is some kind of a gift and I want to keep going. And that's our philosophy here at Encore is sing for life. We want you to sing as long as you possibly can. Cate, do you have something to add?
I do, and thank you for the question and for that response, because when we did our qualitative research, we found in talking with women through our ages that there was a real sadness if they had to leave soprano 1 and go the other way.
It was like a demotion, right?
It's a
Yeah.
demotion,
It's
and
not.
the only place you find this, people, is in amateur choirs. Because in the professional world, it's not a demotion to be assigned soprano 2. For example, in oratorio, in opera, the soprano 2 often has a little bit more color and even weight in the voice, and it's a question of balance in when the quartets and quintets are sung, that very often the lead soprano, the one who's singing, the queen of the night or whatever, is singing second soprano. So listen, I've been through that. And in high school, I went to a summer camp and they put me in second soprano. I thought I was going to kill myself. I was so upset, but I know better now. It's not a demotion.
I
Yeah.
love singing second soprano. I
Yeah, me
absolutely,
too.
I love it. It's so much fun. Good. Heather has another question. What would be a good upper limit for full out singing hours per day with a mature voice? 2 hours was what I learned back in grad school, but I wonder if recommendations change as we age. And I would put that in context to say that our rehearsals are an hour and a half, generally. So what, do you have any thoughts on that?
This is entirely individual and dependent upon your vocal health, stamina, the suppleness of your vocal fold tissues, the strength of the muscles, the flexibility, the range that you're singing, how difficult the repertoire is. So there can't be a number on there. But what there can be is advice that if you're starting to lose your voice, you're starting to have vocal fold swelling, the technical word edema, stop. That's it. Stop. Because we only have one set of vocal folds and you don't want to risk damage them once they've started swelling. Friends, do you have anything else?
Well, I also think that that graduate school advice was stupid. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I'm sorry because what's full out singing? Are you singing 400 opera arias in a row?
Mhm.
Are you practicing? I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Mm.
I think it was not sound advice. And if any of the other conductors want to uh, weigh in, we would be thrilled to have you. Um, yes, you do need to have stamina to sustain 2 hours, but you're not like singing at your full out. I don't even know, you know, and if you're singing musically, you're not singing full
No.
out over 2 hours, right?
Carl Orff's three
Mm.
times in a row.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I don't know. Catherine and Heather, what do you think?
And Joanne's got something for us.
yeah, I mean, I think
Oh,
again, I think it's very individual, but I do, as we get older, we have, as I said, less nerve redundancy. So things get tired more quickly. And if you push through, then we have a problem and we may get vocal fold swelling, but we may have also muscular fatigue. So, if you find you're getting a little tired or your pitch is lowering, that means your vocal folds are swelling up. If you're losing your high soft. So you don't want to get to that point. I think, as Kate said, we don't have to sing every single note in a choral rehearsal.
Mhm.
And if you can even schedule a little vocal nap in there, like sing for 20, mouth for 5, listen really intently. So you build in your own little individual rest points as needed, just to get everything to calm down, get the nerves to say, okay, I'll come back in a minute. But the also cooling down is really important.
Mm.
There's a lot of research that shows a vocal cool down after we use our voice athletically will really help our voice feel better the next day. It
Mhm.
just brings everything back to neutral. So warm up, cool down on the other side. That's another piece of it. So according to your own individual situation, make smart choices. Um,
Mhm.
so that's my input. And if anybody else has anything else, I'm interested too.
I think we should adopt that, Catherine, a vocal nap. I like that term.
We talk in our ensembles regularly about riding the wave, right?
Hmm.
Like you get to ride the choral wave as a choral musician. You're not expected to sing every single part perfectly or every single note perfectly. There are times when you can just ride that wave and catch it on the other side. But I love the idea of the vocal nap. I'm borrowing that.
Yeah.
That's SLP talk, by the way. It's just good voice health advice, particularly if you're coming off a cold or something and your voice is on the way to recovering. You just have to build in. And for teachers, vocal
Hmm.
naps where you're doing a lot of even speaking voice use is just really smart to do.
Yeah. I love going into choral classrooms now, and so many of the teachers are using microphones now to help save their voices. Something that I wish I had had when I was in the classroom. And we are working at Encore to make sure that all of our conductors have access to a microphone, whether that's in the site that we're at, both for their vocal health, but also for the hearing of our singers, to make sure that that communication is good. So we are right at 9 o'clock. Do you have any last words for us, or anything that you want to say to kind of wrap everything in a bow?
I think
Um,
we just want to thank you all for being here and letting us do our thing. And you've been great. You've been so attentive and trying things. And thank you, Marianne, for corralling us. Um, One last thing. Yeah, we do want to plug our book, but I gotta say that we wrote the book we wish we had.
Right.
had. And it is amazing to me that came out in 2020. It is still the only resource like it. There are plenty of people who are doing research, but what we pulled together in that book, it hasn't been touched in 5 years.
I'd like to add to what Cate said is that the three of us don't appear together. It takes something as super special as Encore to get the three of us in a room. This is the first time we've done a presentation like this where we covered these three different sections. We are book sisters, and only Encore could make this happen.
Oh, well, we are so glad that we were able to do this. And thank you very much for your generosity. Thank you again to AARP and our grant from the DC Council on Arts and Humanities to help make this happen. We are going to be taking a break from research masterclasses in December because December is just too dang busy. But we will be back in January. And again, you'll get a link to this recording if you want to come back and revisit anything. And we will make sure that you have the access to that PDF as well. So thank you, Nancy, Cate, and Joanne. It's been wonderful. Thank you to all of our participants. And there's just a flurry of thanks going on in the chat. So I hope that you're taking a look at those. So thank you for being with us and spending your Monday evening here, and have a wonderful night. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yay!